Welcome to this week's episode of Your Stock Request for the 15th of March. Every week I'll look at the charts for a few different stocks as requested by you. Just email us at mail@fairmontequities.com. There's a limit of one per person and no guarantee that I can cover your stock depending on the demand. Also make sure that you do share this video on social media. The more requests that we get, the more chance we have to uncover something interesting for the rest of us. Also, just take note of the disclaimer, any advice here is general only. Okay, first one today is Blackham Resources, BLK. So this is a weekly chart going back the last 4 years. What you'll notice in the bottom corner here is a small move up in comparison to where it's been, but huge volume. So just moving to a daily chart. So far it looks pretty bullish. We've had this sort of bounce up in early February, so essentially a 2-day bounce, and then it took the stock 1 month to retrace only about half of this bounce, so that's quite a positive. And then it's gapped up on massive volume, and at the moment it seems to be following through. So all of that is a positive. I think it'll go higher. Just moving back to a weekly chart. But obviously, to put it in perspective, you know, the things come from 80 cents down to about less than 8 cents. And we could see that this massive move in the last few days is still just a very small dot in the greater scheme of things. So, you know, there's a short-term trade there, but obviously there's still a downtrend in place, and we can't get too excited. It looks like the stock's previously bounced from this level here, which is around 12.5 cents. So we might find that from about 9.5, it might head to about 12.5 before hitting some resistance. And obviously, I mean, if you like the company and you want to hold it longer term, you might want to see a little bit more, a few more higher highs, higher lows, just to make sure that this downtrend is getting broken. Next stock we have is Pepinini Minerals, not one I've heard of. Massive move up at the end of last year, massive move down at the beginning of this year. A positive is that we could see good volume on the way up, that's pretty clear. And so this is a weekly chart, so during the last several weeks down, we can see that volume has trailed off. So that's good. We don't want to see a lot of volume on the way down, we want to see the volume on the way up. But I am just concerned that this is quite a sharp move down. So it would have been nice to have seen, I guess, like what we saw here, where we saw a big move up on volume, but the move down was a lot flatter and used up a lot more time, low volume. This one's a real sharp move down. Moving to a daily chart. So we could see the big sell-off here. It is starting to taper off, but there's no reason why at 2.9 cents it can't continue drifting down to 2 cents or even lower. So at the moment there's no signs that it's going to turn around, but as I said, it is a positive that the volume's drying up on the way down. A2 Milk, we had a look at this one last week, but I don't mind covering it again because we have had a few developments. A2 Milk, so this is a daily chart, and if you watched the video last week, I basically mentioned that, you know, with A2, it is one that I have found quite difficult to get a reading on. It's just the way it is. But what we'll talk about last week was this big move up. It was a little bit concerning that on the second day up, there was a lot of selling up at those levels. And then after a few days, it could only move sideways. So it was a little bit neutral, but we could see here it's finally started to turn up again. So it's going to have a crack at testing that previous peak. So it looks like one worth holding. I wouldn't be necessarily buying it up here. Given this big move up, it might still need to use some more time. So you might get a move up towards that $14 level, and then it might start to get a bit of profit taking, and it might just need to use a little bit more time. So yeah, happy to hold, but couldn't be buying it up here. Okay, the next one's JAY. As you can see, it's a brand new code. only been listed for a little over a month, so I can't really add much based on the chart. Clearly we could see it's come online, it's been sold off, and now it's starting to recover. Bit of volume here. Obviously this is a daily chart. Big move up yesterday. Not a lot of volume though. So it looks like it's recovering, but I just can't really add too much. To be honest, it's getting close to, it looks like where it came online, around 50 cents. So you might start to see a bit more selling again. Okay, Newcrest Mining. I'll move out to a weekly chart. So I have been bullish on gold a number of times in the last year or two. Not necessarily at the right time all the time, but we've done well trading gold stocks. But the gold stocks I've been trading have been Northern Star, Evolution, St. Barbara. I haven't touched Newcrest. I don't think the company's as good quality as those others, although it is I guess the company is a little bit better than what it used to be going back 10 years. But I have been keeping an eye on Newcrest because even though it's gone sideways in the last year, despite all the other gold stocks heading up, I just found it interesting that it was trading within this triangle. So I've been keeping an eye on it for a breakout. But unfortunately, as those of you can now see, the breakout's been to the downside. So this is a good example of why, if you're a bit conservative, you don't want to be buying something before it breaks out, just in case it goes the other way. So been trading in a triangle. I thought if this thing breaks to the upside, we'll get a fairly decent move. But unfortunately, it sort of broke down in the last couple of weeks. So this is a weekly chart. Not necessarily a bad sign. I mean, sometimes you get these little false breaks, but it looks as though with this week's price action that it does want to head lower. So I think it's a sell, and it'll probably come back and retest this previous low here near $17. AGL, I remember looking at this one a couple of months ago, and it's gotten worse. So I think we looked at it around here. There was a downtrend, it was broken, a retest, a nice rally, but unfortunately it was sold into pretty sharply, and then it sort of struggled to do anything, and now the shares are coming back again. But if we move to a weekly chart, it's starting to look a bit more constructive. So what you'll notice is recent price action sitting on top of this high, so it's finding some support. And looking at the weekly candles, in my opinion, this looks good. So okay, you've got this big move down, but then you've got a recovery here, so what's known as a piercing pattern. Didn't follow through for a couple of weeks, but on the third week it did get sold down again, but again we can see that it made a higher low and has bounced, and then this week it's higher. So it's not hugely bullish, but I find this this sequence of weekly candles encouraging, especially, as I said, it's sitting on top of this previous high, so it's starting to look encouraging, and early signs that we might get a recovery. Clearly the previous sell-off here was at this low, so ideally we want to see it push through there, so push through that $23 mark, and then it starts to look a lot better. Okay, CUV, we've looked at this one previously. I can't remember if it was in our paid research or not, but we had this strong level of resistance which was broken, and then we had a massive rally from, we can see, sort of the mid 7s to almost the mid 9s. Came back to test it, bounced again, which was good. Started to look a bit negative here, to be honest, given that it tried to go to this high and was sold off, and then had another sell-off at a lower high. So I think it was looking probably a bit negative here, but then in the last few weeks it started to to look a bit more positive. And what you'll notice is that we've got this, now it's looking a bit more like a triangular continuation pattern. And if I, so this is the previous high, yeah, it breached it briefly here, but generally it's congesting under this high, which some of you will know is a pattern that I quite like. Whenever we've seen that before, BHP, a number of other stocks, it results in a really good trade when it breaks. So at the moment, it's congesting under this high. I'm not saying it's a buy now. Like with the Newcrest example, it could break to the downside, but clearly this level here around $9.20, I think if we see a push through there on volume, then there's a good trade there and you can follow it. Finally, Eclipse. This is a company I like, but it's not performing the way I'd like it to. It's at a good support level. So let's start off with the daily chart. So a bit of history on how it's traded. Okay, so we can see that from this low here, it had a really nice run up, sort of formed this flag, broke through it, and after a few more days, it had broken through this downtrend. Great rally, sort of tested this high, came back a bit, but unfortunately, it's obviously slid a fair way. What I was looking at was initially, I thought if we have a 5-wave move, and where this is wave 1, 2, 3, I was looking for it to come back for wave 4, not overlap this line, and then rally for a wave 5. But as it came back to test this line, early Feb, market got belted. So like most stocks, it just fell through. Support managed to recover pretty well, but once again has come back. I guess if we extend this line, I've just noticed it looks like it's sort of testing that level. But if I just get rid of these lines, we'll just go back to a weekly chart. It's pretty clear that around 360, there's a lot of support around these levels. So the stock's back to the bottom of the range. This is one that we can look at fundamentally, and it's a very cheap company. I think it trades on about 11.5 times. The average broker target is about 30% higher than where it is now. And I think some of the weaknesses come from a rotation out of this stock into some other leasing companies like Macmillan Shakespeare and SGF. Anyway, it's at some pretty good support here. I'd like to see it bounce. I think if it falls through here, I'd be pretty disappointed and might have to move on, but it's at a key level. I think if we get a reversal off here, that would be a good sign that it could potentially head back to the top of the range. And just looking at the way it's traded in the range, what's encouraging is that every time it moves up pretty swiftly. The moves down quite slow, another swift move up, a move down here that took longer than the move up. So all of that's quite encouraging. You want to see that within the range. So I think if it reverses here and heads back up, we're looking at within a couple of months, it'll be back up towards that 420, 430 mark. Final stock, Crown. Bit of a messy chart. This is a weekly. The encouraging sign is that we're getting these higher lows, higher highs. Bit sort of messy here in that it went to a new high, then was sort of sold off sharply and sold off again. Again, coincides with the market getting sold off in February, so you might want to give it the benefit of the doubt. There is a little bit of divergence. In other words, we've got price trending higher, but momentum with the RSI trending lower. So often you'll see that as a bit of a turning point, not always. So I think we'll see a bit more weakness here. I couldn't be buying Crown here. I think you'd probably want to stick a trend line along here and hope it comes back towards $12 for an entry point. Well, that's it for today. Remember, send in your requests for next week and make sure you do the right thing and share this page on social media.